Good afternoon. Drivers are feeling more pain at the pumps as the war between the U.S., Iran, and Israel is now in its 7th day.
There is little relief inside as prices are expected to continue to rise throughout the weekend. CTV's Janice Golding has been speaking with drivers and joins us live now with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. Yes, the price of gas shot up yet again overnight, and analysts are predicting that this is far from over. Prices went up about 2 cents across the GTA, and many believe that they will just continue to climb as the conflict in the Middle East continues. Today, gas is sitting at around $1.48 per litre, and Canadians for Affordable Energy say it expects prices to go up by 7 cents tomorrow, followed by another 3 cents on Sunday. And that would make it a 21-cent increase week over week. Now, last week, Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz to oil and gas exports, which about 1/5 of the global oil supply passes through. And experts say the longer this goes on, the greater the impact will be.
Well, how high we get is a little bit difficult to determine right now. A lot of the focus is on the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. That's a vital waterway that on a normal day carries 20 to 25 million barrels of oil to the marketplace. With that effectively blocked through Iran's threats, that oil is not getting through to the marketplace. And oil prices up another 9% this morning. Toronto already seeing prices $1.45 a liter. That's up 19 cents in the last week.
Too much. And the cost of living, prices of food, and then gas, that's even more.
I mean, everything's going up, so, I mean, it hurts.
I'm not really worried. I'm just irritated by it. Like, we shouldn't be affected by it, right? The gas is going up.
And again, analysts say they just expect the prices to keep climbing. Gas Buddy, for example, saying they expect prices to go up between 5 and 15 cents over the weekend. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Well, thousands of Canadians are trying to get out of countries across the Middle East amid the ongoing conflict.
However, many people have been left stranded due to a lack of flights and high prices for tickets. CTV's Beth Macdonell has been speaking with passengers at Pearson Airport. She joins us live this afternoon with more. Beth.
Michelle, we just spoke with many people actually who just got off a flight from Dubai and are telling us they are very happy to be home. This is after days and days of flights being canceled. And basically, these people are telling me that they either went to the airport to try and get a flight, some couldn't even get in the airport, others were just calling and trying to rebook and rebook. One man told me he actually booked 5 or 6 flights, desperate to get out of there. I just spoke with one woman so relieved to be back. She was telling me that she was actually on the beach with her 4-year-old when they saw a missile intercepted, and so some very scary moments for them. What I was hearing from these people getting off this flight was that there were several flights planned to go, and essentially this was the 2nd flight out, so a lot of relief that this flight actually went ahead. Here's more from what passengers were telling us just a few moments ago.
We were worried about getting home and worried about getting a flight. And every night there were missiles and alerts going on. So we're really happy to be home.
It wasn't that bad, to be honest. Like on the ground, things were all right. Like, yeah, there were lots of interception sounds and stuff overhead, but there was never really like crazy panic. Like, you know, the stores were all stocked and stuff like that, so day-to-day lives were, you know, pretty much normal.
Many of the people we spoke with said they were there for a short vacation. One man told me he was there for a conference, so this war very unexpected and basically had a lot of people scrambling. Some people were starting to look into ground routes that they would be able to get. Some were looking into going to Oman, so a lot of complicated journeys that could have been on the horizon. These people were feeling very lucky to be back home safe in Canada. Reporting live, I'm Beth Macdonell. Michelle and Natalie, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And still to come, continuing coverage of the conflict in the Middle East. We'll have the latest on the situation on the ground overseas a little later in the newscast.
But first, lawyers will be making arguments today in the sexual assault trial of billionaire businessman Frank Stronach. Prosecutors recently finished presenting their evidence in the case, and the court is set to address some legal issues before the defense presents its case next week. Stronach initially pleaded not guilty to 12 charges, including 7 complainants. Prosecutors have since withdrawn a charge of forcible confinement and are also seeking to withdraw one count of sexual assault.
A Toronto man has been charged in connection with a major fraud investigation in York Region. 40-year-old Sergei Shavalyev is accused of scamming investors out of $2.5 million. Police say 6 people invested in Equity Line Service Corporation and were promised a return on their investments. Instead, investigators say the suspect used the money for personal gain. Shavalyev is facing 6 counts of fraud over $5,000. Police are concerned there may be more victims. Service along a stretch of the Eglinton West LRT has been suspended. Trains have been halted between Sloan and Pharmacy after a train collided with a vehicle in the area. Shuttle buses are now running instead. Police say the vehicle involved left the scene. Fortunately, no injuries reported here. The cause of the crash is under investigation.
3 people were injured in a crash involving a TTC bus in North York early this morning. It happened in the area of Trethewey Drive and Martha Eaton Way just before midnight. Paramedics say one person was taken to a local trauma center with serious injuries, while 2 others suffered minor injuries. The cause of the crash is still being investigated. Meanwhile, 2 people have been arrested after a vehicle caught fire after crashing into a pole in North Etobicoke. Emergency crews were called to the area of Westmore Drive and Albion Road just after 5 a.m. for reports of a crash. The vehicle was fully engulfed in flames when they arrived, but has since been extinguished. No one was in the vehicle when first responders arrived. However, 2 people were located a short time later and 1 was arrested. One person is being treated for minor injuries. So far, there has been no word on whether any charges will be laid.
The cost of street parking in the city could be on the rise for a 3rd straight year. Toronto Parking Authority staff are proposing an increase of 25 cents per hour for most on-street spaces next month. The increase could be steeper in high-demand areas, rising between $1.25 and $2.75 in some areas. The parking agency, which was directed by council to implement a rate increase, says its rates are lower or on par with those in other North American cities.
A note for commuters, there is a partial closure on the TTC's Line 2 this weekend. Beginning at 11, trains will be replaced by buses between Vic Park and Kennedy stations. The TTC says the closure is for planned track work. Warden Station will be closed, but all other stations will be open for customers to buy fares and connect with surface routes. Regular service is set to resume on Monday at 6 a.m.
Meanwhile, transit riders may have noticed a slight difference to the way their Presto cards function. As of this week, registered cards will only work on the TTC if they have enough funds to pay the full fare. On GO Transit, cards with insufficient funds at tap-off will dip into the negative and won't be accepted again until reloaded. Metrolink says this better aligns with policies between physical Presto cards and those stored in mobile wallets, which don't allow negative balances. Well, the Maple Leafs lost their 6th straight game last night as the team continues to tumble down the standings.
Now fans are wondering if a big shakeup is on the way ahead of this afternoon's NHL trade deadline. CTV's Mike Walker has been speaking with fans about what this all means for the Leafs and joins us live with the latest. Mike.
Well, Natalie, disappointment would be a huge understatement for many in Leafs Nation when talking about this season. The Leafs haven't won a game since returning from the Olympic break, and many fans we have been speaking with are writing off this season any hopes of making the playoffs. And at trade deadline, they are hoping for a retool rather than a complete rebuild. Now, with just hours to go until trade deadline, it has been quiet so far for Toronto. Toronto did trade center Nicholas Waugh to Colorado yesterday for some draft picks ahead of the game against New York. And there's plenty of speculation about who else may go. And that includes Bobby McMahon, Scott Laughton, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. The trio have been kept out of the lineup for what's being called a roster management purposes. So that might be an indication there if one of those 3 players may be traded. In the meantime, here's more from fans on their expectations on trade deadline day.
Probably get rid of Domi. He's been up and down all season, last few years. Probably sell McMahon when he's high.
They have a defense problem. And that's, they have to try to get the defense a little bit stronger. That would be better.
This year, it just kind of went sideways, and you can see them looking at all these expiring deals that they have. They've got Bobby McMahon, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson has 2 years left, but Scott Laughton also a UFA. they've traded a lot of first-round picks in prior years, and then to not be in a playoff race, you kind of have to recoup as a franchise, even if it's a quick turnaround. So I definitely see the Leafs making some more moves today and kind of bowing a little bit more out of the playoff race this season.
So we're continuing to monitor to see if the Leafs make any more moves, who may go and what they may get in return. Trade deadline is 3 this afternoon, and shortly after then we'll be hearing from the Leafs GM. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Time to turn our attention to the forecast, and wow, half the skyline is missing. It's damp, it's foggy looking, it's feeling mild, and we are anticipating quite a warm-up this weekend, but unfortunately with that comes some issues too when you've got all the snow that needs to melt. Lindsay, bring us up to speed. There's a lot to talk about on this Friday.
There's a lot going on in the weather department, Michelle, as we head into the weekend. You're right, it is damp, it is drizzly outside right now. It's not all that pleasant because temperatures haven't exactly risen quite yet, but they will. There's more rain on the way and possible thunderstorms into the night tonight. Environment Canada issuing some rainfall warnings not long ago. This is mainly for communities to the north of the GTA, but we could get a decent drenching here locally too. We're right at the freezing mark in Toronto. It's +2 in Niagara Falls, but it's -1 in the city of Barrie. Winds out of the east today, not as strong as they are going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow will be wet at times, windy, but also very warm. We look to make it to about 4 degrees this afternoon, and then the temperature will continue to rise through the overnight hours. We're going to take a detailed look at your weekend weather forecast. Lots to like about Sunday. That's all coming up. For now, Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, following a conversation with British Columbia's Premier and the Mayor of Tumbler Ridge, the CEO of OpenAI has agreed to apologize following last month's mass shooting.
But there is still no timeline for when the apology might happen. CTV's Rob Buffum has the details.
A solemn Premier EB emerged from a virtual meeting with Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, the company that's admitted it flagged worrisome activity on ChatGPT by the shooter in the Tumbler Ridge tragedy, but failed to forward the concerns to police.
Mr. Altman is prepared to apologize. Everybody on the call recognized that an apology is nowhere near sufficient, but also that it is completely necessary.
In addition to seeking an apology from OpenAI, EB asked Altman to join the province in pushing Ottawa to legislate national regulations for all AI companies, mandating reporting thresholds for dangerous activity.
It's not acceptable that there are inconsistent standards between companies. It's not acceptable that it's up to the companies about whether or not to report, and that needs to change.
Also on the call, Tumbler Ridge's mayor, the Premier asking him to join so he could convey the heartbreak unleashed on February 10th, when the shooter, Jesse Van Rootselaar, killed 8 people, including 6 children, before taking her own life.
He shared the raw emotion and his experience as mayor every morning talking to families who wake up when kids aren't there. And it was quite a moving and significant part of our conversation.
Also Thursday, Jordan Keeley, an independent MLA in the region, tabled a private member's bill, hoping to legislate safer schools by locking their doors while class is in session.
You control who is welcome and who is not welcome and authorized for entry into the schools. We need to mandate this across the province.
The education minister responded, indicating the bill is unlikely to pass.
We have extremely strong safety protocols here in British Columbia, and it's my goal to ensure that we create safe and welcoming spaces for students.
The Premier says the nature of the apology from OpenAI will be decided in consultation with the mayor to ensure it doesn't reopen the community's healing wounds.
Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
The war involving the U.S., Iran, and Israel is now in its 7th day. Israel has launched more strikes on Iran and Lebanon, while Iran has fired retaliatory strikes at Israel. The Israeli military has begun what it describes as a broad-scale wave of strikes on the Iranian capital of Tehran.
The Israeli military is also targeting areas of Lebanon controlled by Hezbollah, including carrying out strikes in the suburbs of Beirut. An Israeli military official says 26 waves of strikes hit Beirut overnight.
Sirens have been sounding in Israel as a result of Iranian attacks. Israel has accused Iran of using cluster munitions in its strikes, which critics say can endanger civilians long after their use. CTV Scott Hurst has been following this conflict and joins us live now with more. Scott, Ottawa says it is working on plans to assist Canadians in the Middle East. We've seen many of them arrive here at Pearson Airport. What can you tell us?
Natalie, we're learning the Canadian government is getting more Canadians out of the region, but this is also coming as demand is increasing, with the government under increased scrutiny to do more for Canadians in the region and get more Canadians out. Right now, the latest numbers from Global Affairs is that more than 108,000 Canadians have been registered in the Middle East, and that just over 3,500 have requested assistance leaving. And so the three types of departures that the Canadian government is working on include charter flights, and that really is one of the bigger developments, that a charter flight from Dubai to Istanbul has been secured to accommodate 180 Canadians set to depart tomorrow. The government has also secured more block bookings on commercial airlines, including on 2 flights from Air Arabia from Dubai to Istanbul for about 45 to 50 Canadians on each flight. Also an Emirates flight from Dubai to Toronto expected to land tomorrow with 51 Canadians already securing a seat. In Lebanon, there's also 200 seats that have been secured from Beirut to Istanbul, booked for Canadians. And according to the government, since the beginning of their block booking efforts, more than 325 seats in total have been booked by the government of Canada for Canadians in Beirut to get them out of that country, to get them out of Lebanon. Here's more from the Foreign Affairs Minister.
My team is sourcing all means of transportation for Canadians to leave the region as a whole. Step by step, we are ensuring that Canadians can leave through 3 means, either through our chartered flights, through block bookings on existing airlines, and by ground transportation. Seaway is always another possibility, but we are cognizant of the dangers of traveling through this means of transportation at this time.
And Natalie, you heard the minister there also mention ground transportation. The government has been able to confirm 4 buses leaving Qatar to Saudi Arabia starting on Saturday for about 180 seats available for Canadians to use that option as well.
Scott, considering the demand that might be in place here for Canadians who are in the Middle East, will this be enough? The charter flights, the block bookings that the minister mentioned, the ground transportation options, will they all be able to get out if they want to?
At this point, there are more than 3,500 Canadians who have asked the Canadian government for help leaving, so there are still many more people who are looking to get out than seats that have been secured for Canadians. Potentially another option is working with the Department of National Defense, conducting a military airlift. Now, Minister Anand says her office has been in coordination, been in touch with the Department of Defense. However, we did hear from a Department of Defense official and operations commander in the region who said no request has officially been made with his department. Therefore, no ships or planes have been moved as part of any evacuation plan. Here's more from that commander.
We are contingency planning, meaning we're making sure that we understand the situation, and we've deployed 6. We are in the process of deploying 6 people as liaison officers to make sure that we're prepared should such a request come in, but we do not have any such request yet, nor have we moved major assets like ships or airplanes.
So, Natalie, as you mentioned, there is still much more demand. There are still more Canadians in the region trying to get out. We saw a plane land in Toronto Pearson last night from Abu Dhabi, where there were some Canadians who said they didn't get much information from the Canadian government and they were able to get out on their own. We know another plane is there today, is arriving today. So more Canadians are getting out, but the government is under increasing pressure to do more to help Canadians get out of the region, Natalie.
Okay, CTV's Scott Hurst, thank you for this. The latest on Canadians trying to return home from the Middle East.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Japan on the last leg of his Indo-Pacific trade tour.
Just hours after landing in Tokyo, Carney and his Japanese counterparts signed a new comprehensive strategic partnership. CTV's Abigail Beeman has been traveling with the Prime Minister and has more from Tokyo.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is now in Tokyo for the final stop on his trade diversification world tour.
Ame, fute, ji, katamaru.
After the rain. Thank you. After the rain, the ground grows firmer. Adversity tests our strength and builds it. So today, we are taking our first steps on firmer ground together.
Carney made an effort to speak some Japanese after he and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi Sanae signed a new comprehensive strategic partnership aimed at deepening ties on energy, trade, and defense. Like the rest of this trip, the Prime Minister is trying to show the Indo-Pacific Canada has what the world wants. For Japan, that's Canada's energy, especially LNG, and food. The government wants to increase the sale of both. In her remarks, Prime Minister Takaichi referred to Canada's plans to expand LNG shipments off BC's coast as of great significance to Japan. As for defense, there will be more joint exercises by the two countries' navies and the potential for Japan to take part in Canada's Arctic operations. Carney is the first world leader to meet the Japanese Prime Minister since she was elected last month. And because her birthday is tomorrow, he brought her a cake with a Canadian maple cream and cranberry syrup. The Prime Minister has a host of business meetings in Tokyo Saturday before flying back to Ottawa. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Tokyo.
Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump's trade czar in Washington today ahead of the mandatory review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement known as CUSMA. The agreement has protected Canada from some of the worst impacts of Trump's tariffs. However, the U.S. president has repeatedly questioned whether the deal should be maintained. The trade relationship between Canada and the U.S. has experienced upheaval due to Trump's tariffs and threats of annexation. Earlier this week, Prime Minister Mark Carney stated that CUSMA has effectively been broken in the short term by U.S. actions.
Those talks come as Americans receive some worse than expected news on their country's economy. Figures from the U.S. Labor Department show there was an estimated 92,000 jobs lost nationwide last month. Economists had been expecting a net gain of around 60,000 positions after strong numbers in January. The U.S. unemployment rate also edged slightly higher to 4.4%. There were anticipated impacts on the top line number from a healthcare worker strike and the extreme cold, but analysts say uncertainty around tariffs is prompting some employers to halt hiring plans.
The Paralympics are set to kick off today in Italy. The final preparations are being put in place ahead of the opening ceremony in Verona. 8 countries are boycotting the Games because of the inclusion of Russian and Belarusian athletes who are competing under their national flags. Canada has sent 50 athletes to the Games.
Get ready, the clocks will spring forward an hour this weekend as we enter daylight saving time. Clocks jump ahead 1 hour on Sunday at 2 a.m. The change is meant to provide more daylight hours during the evening in the spring and summer. Most provinces and territories follow daylight saving time, with the exception of Yukon, most of Saskatchewan, and some parts of Ontario, Quebec, and Nunavut. British Columbia recently passed legislation to move to permanent daylight saving time. Several studies have linked the seasonal clock changes to a higher risk of negative health effects.
The scientific research tells us that the switching twice a year is bad for us, particularly in the spring. We know that with the spring forward, first of all, we're losing an hour of sleep. Everybody is sleep deprived anyway, and that extra loss of an hour has an impact on us. And also, we're moving away from our standard time that we're on over the winter, moving into daylight saving time, and that disrupts our internal clocks. As a result, we know we get a short-term increase in accidents, a short-term increase in acute health events.
You might remember in 2020, Ontario passed legislation to permanently remain on daylight time, but only if bordering Quebec and New York State follow suit. While U.S. states have the power to switch to permanent standard time, federal law currently prohibits the adoption of permanent daylight time. Lindsay.
Well, do you know what another sign of spring is? Thunderstorm activity, and we could get some of that as early as tonight. Here's how this all looks to play out. It's a pretty active looking couple of days. Clusters of storms, heavy rounds of rain, and some gusty winds for Saturday. But look at this, some clearing and some sunshine by Sunday. Not only that, but we've been talking about it all week long. We're in for a nice little bump in temperature. Here's the thing, though. We're not completely done with the cold air. In fact, it will be back by about this time next week. We'll take a look at your 7-day forecast after this break. You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll be right back.
The World Cup is coming to Canada.
Right before I close my eyes, they have a dream to fulfill.
Canada, this is the moment we've all been waiting for.
That's what they came for!
We showed you earlier that Prime Minister Mark Carney has been on his trade tour. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has also spent the past week on a tour of his own, meeting with leaders in London and Berlin. CTV's Jeremy Charon has been following Poilievre's travels and joins us live from Ottawa with more. What are the takeaways from the trip so far, Jeremy?
Yeah, Michelle, look, this is kind of an uncommon trip, if you will, for an opposition leader. Mr. Poilievre taking his first foreign trip since becoming leader of the Conservative Party in 2022. He is not on this trip in, representing the government or making any decisions in any official government capacity. This is a Conservative-funded trip that he is taking, meeting with business leaders and politicians in the UK. That is, was the focus in London for sure. He also gave a speech during his time earlier in the week in London where he focused really on the potential to strengthen trade relationships with a number of countries, pitching something that has been talked about before, but we haven't heard much talk about in some time, something known as CANZUK, which is, really a proposed furthering of relationships between Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, a deal that could bolster trade further than already exists between the two countries, would mean free movement between the two countries. Mr. Poilievre giving us a little bit of insight as to what, he would be pushing for if he were ever to be able to form government, and certainly his idea of how to strengthen partnerships with some of these countries in the face of a changing relationship, of course, with the U.S. He also has been spending some time really pushing energy in Canada's ability to be a major energy exporter. He did so in London and has really been focused on that during his time in Berlin, Germany, where he is really making a pitch for Canada in the future to be a long-term energy partner, especially with LNG for Germany. So that has been kind of the focus for him.
I understand it. Well, has there been progress there?
Well, look, Michelle, he's pitching ideas, right? He's there as the Conservative leader, in terms of progress. There isn't much that he can make as the leader of the opposition party. It's not like he's signing deals. He's not going to be doing any of that. He is pitching what he would do potentially if he were to be prime minister. And certainly we're getting insight into, what Mr. Poilievre would look to do if he were to become that one day. And when it comes to a relationship with Germany, he feels as though that Canada could and should play a key role in Germany's energy usage in the future. He's looking for Canada to be able to retool and build new infrastructure to be able to export liquefied natural gas to European partners. Right now, Canada has an export terminal on the west coast in Kitimat, BC, but we do not have the capability to export liquefied natural gas to European allies because there is no export terminal in the east. So, he talked about, pushing something like that forward if Canada were to be able to strike a deal with Germany. Here is a little more from Mr. Poilievre on this.
But resources under the ground do not strengthen alliances. They must be developed, transported, and exported. That means permitting pipelines, approving LNG plants, and building the infrastructure that connects demand with supply. My future government is going to take the words of Elvis Presley, a little less conversation, a little more action, please.
So again, we're getting a snapshot, Michelle, of what Mr. Poilievre, feels should be the future of this country in terms of partnerships with some European allies. It's a unique look at something we don't often get, which is, his perspective on international relationships, despite the fact he is the opposition leader. We see a lot from the Prime Minister on the international front. You don't typically see as much from an opposition leader. So a bit of a shift in terms of a Conservative leader who certainly is looking to show what he could do if he were to be Prime Minister.
CTV Jeremy Sharon live for us in Ottawa. Thanks.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Time now for your weather forecast, and there is a lot to talk about as we head into the weekend. I think people love the idea of some double-digit temperatures because it was so cold in parts last month, but the trade-off, I don't know, might not be so enjoyable. What do you think?
Well, the clocks spring forward as well, which is always a sign of spring, although we do lose that hour of sleep.
Yeah, I mean, there is that, but we're going to gain some daylight in the evenings. That's what I'm focusing on, and I'm focusing on double-digit highs at times over the weekend. I think we can all get on board with that. It has been a cold and snowy winter, so for many, this will be a welcome change, but tomorrow is going to be warm. Yes, it's also going to be wet and windy, and today, not the most pleasant day for spending some time outside. But let's tell you everything you need to know right through next week. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm, the injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. First, let's talk about last night. We were under a freezing rain warning in parts of the GTA. There was some ice buildup in some areas, but for the most part, this was a rain event. And then this morning, some drizzle and some freezing drizzle. So there may have been some slippery spots as you were waking up and heading out the door this morning. Drizzle is hard to detect on the satellite and radar. You might be able to see a couple speckles around the GTA. We certainly have cloud cover. We do have a few showers across southwest Ontario, and we're watching some heavier, steadier rain stateside. And this is what's going to sweep across our part of the province later on today, bringing us heavy at times rain, but also some embedded thunderstorms. Not just tonight, but tomorrow potentially as well. Then a couple of systems track across northern Ontario. Those are misses for us, which is great news because we are looking at sunshine for both Sunday and Monday. But I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. Let's bring it back to today and a rainfall warning that has been issued by Environment Canada. This is a yellow level rainfall warning. 15 to 40 millimeters of rain going to be possible in the areas that you see here in green. There's still a fog advisory in place for Woodstock over toward Hamilton. You'll notice that Toronto not included in the rainfall warning, but we too could get a decent amount of rainfall. Again, we're not just talking about the falling rain, we're talking about the melting snow. So additional runoff for rivers and streams, a concern over the next couple of days. Some wet weather is going to get going for us early this evening, but the risk of thunderstorms is more so late evening and overnight. There could be a couple of rumbles of thunder, flashes of lightning through the night tonight. Hopefully that doesn't wake you up. And then into tomorrow midday, looks like a round of rain for the GTA, showers into the evening. By Sunday, this is all going to slowly clear out. And again, we're going to enjoy sunny skies. Winds are another part of the story for tomorrow. Very strong gusts out of the southwest, fueling that warm up. We're still at freezing right now. 4 degrees is our forecast high for tomorrow. Through the night tonight, 4 degrees, but the temperature climbing as the day goes on. And then tomorrow's highs in the teens just about everywhere. 15 for us here in Toronto and 9 degrees on Sunday. There's early next week. Lots of sunshine for Monday and Tuesday, but some mixing possible Wednesday and then much colder air for Thursday. That's the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, it's been called the Olympics of Ballet. The Youth American Grand Prix is bringing the best young dancers from across the country to compete for scholarships. Our Jessica Smith joins us live now from the Metro Toronto Convention Centre with more. Jess.
Michelle, it is so inspiring to watch all these young dancers coming out and working on their craft, but also looking towards opportunities to become professionals. I'm joined by Deborah Hess, one of the judges, also representing Canada's National Ballet School. What does an opportunity like this mean for young dancers? Because they start as young as some of them 9 years old, getting ready to step on a big stage by themselves.
Yes, it's true. These kids, even 9-year-olds, they have a passion and they love performing. They love dancing. And so it's an opportunity for them to present themselves, to meet other dancers the same age, maybe from different parts of the world, and gain experience so that they keep gaining confidence and gaining more skill so that it helps pursue their dreams of becoming a professional dancer.
And the Youth American Grand Prix over this weekend is about a 4-day kind of convention. There are about 500 dancers that come through from 9 to 19. What opportunities could come out of this? Because I feel like speaking to some of the kids outside, they were so excited at just the possibility of somebody maybe seeing their talent.
Right. It isn't just about winning a prize. It's also about having the possibility of getting a scholarship to study somewhere, either for the summer or for a short-term grant, or even sometimes a full scholarship for a full-year program at a professional school, such as Canada's National Ballet School.
And speaking of Canada's National Ballet School, I know there are some incredible ballet schools right around the world, but how important is it to foster the talent that we have here in our own country?
Oh, I think it's so important. You know, we have a full academic and dance program, as well as on-site academics and residents. So we are able to give students a full range of education and really develop them not just as beautiful dancers, but as whole people and hopefully beautiful artists.
Well, I can tell you, watching the kids outside, that there are some talented people here. Deborah, thank you so much. Again, this goes on.
Pleasure.
It's been such a blast. You can watch the whole thing online, and it is going on right through to the 9th. I'm going to send things back inside to the studio.
Okay, thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Before we go to break, a live look outside. It's -1 and awfully misty out there right now. You're watching CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
A new Canadian thriller is set to hit theaters this weekend.
CTV's Andrea Case recently caught up with the stars of Sweetness on the red carpet.
Do you think we'll get to meet him tonight? I swear I would die.
The film Sweetness is a psychological thriller which promises a few laughs to break the tension when a 16-year-old superfan bumps into the object of her affection, who just happens to have an addiction problem.
She thinks that she can help him. She does everything in her power to save him, and things go awry.
Think of it as a modern-day Misery, but Sweetness star Kate Hallett says the artist she admires need not worry.
You've relapsed, and it's okay.
Where am I?
We have to keep him here until he can get this out of his system. I don't know if I'd go that far. I was always really obsessed with Taylor Swift growing up. I'm super obsessed with Phoebe Bridgers, Chappell Rowan.
So should they all be worried?
Not from me. I would never ever do anything like that.
The film's writer and director, Emma Higgins, says, keep an eye on Hallett. She's a star on the rise. The same could be said of Higgins, a former Much Music video director, and her work behind the camera.
I wrote it almost 12 years ago. I was a music video director at the time, touring with bands across Canada and working with musicians and fans alike. So that's how I started bringing it together. And then we were lucky enough to get financing through Telefilm and Ontario Creates and the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund.
He doesn't want your help. And he doesn't want you. You're wrong.
Sweetness was shot in North Bay, in her opinion, the perfect small-town location. And Handmaid's Tale and Dark Matter star Amanda Brugel also joins the cast. In addition to big-budget titles, Brugel is very specific as to how she picks her projects.
A couple of years ago, trying to put forward to my team, I wanted to spend a lot of time with first-time female filmmakers. I feel like it's really important, as you know, to send the ladder back down. It's really important to keep the community tight and small and champion especially other women and first-timers.
Sweetness is in theaters now. Andrea Case, CTV News.
The creator behind Heated Rivalry is now set to make a new Netflix series about Alexander the Great. Jacob Tierney will write, direct, and serve as executive producer for the upcoming series Alexander. It is based on Canadian author Annabel Lyon's best-selling novel The Golden Mean, which imagines the relationship between Alexander the Great and his tutor, the philosopher Aristotle. Netflix has not provided any other details about the series, including a possible release date.
Still to come, International Women's Day will be marked this weekend. We'll have more on how you can celebrate when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled Quebec discriminated against female refugee claimants when it comes to access to standardized daycare services. The case started after a woman from the Democratic Republic of Congo applied for asylum and obtained a work permit. She then applied for her 3 children to have spaces in Quebec's heavily subsidized daycare network, which costs about $9 a day. The province rejected the request under rules only allowing access to the system once refugee status is granted. The court said blocking refugee claimants from access threatened to marginalize them from society. This marks the 3rd ruling against Quebec's government on this matter.
International Women's Day is on Sunday, and the Canadian Women's Foundation is planning to mark the occasion by awarding its Feminist Creator Prize.
Thanks to our generous donors, we are able to really create the prize. It's a prize that's awarded to content creators who are putting out positive feminist products online. And we know that that's a really important space for equality and justice and to really give voice to women and gender diverse people. And so the Feminist Creator Prize, it's being awarded this year. There was so much excitement for this prize. Over 400 submissions by 245 individuals were made.
Meanwhile, a rally in March will be held tomorrow to mark International Women's Day. It will begin at 11 a.m. near Bloor West in Bedford before making its way down Yonge Street.
Coming up, maple syrup producers say the season is off to an inconsistent start. We'll have more on the forecast, set to get the sap flowing when we return.
Is the moment we've all been waiting for.
That's what they came for! Wonder what it's like to be loved by.
You could say it's one of the sweetest times of the year, but maple syrup producers say the season is off to an inconsistent start.
They are blaming the recent cold for keeping the sap from flowing. CTV's Scott Miller has more on the conditions that they are counting on.
So this is our filter press.
Kevin Snyder is still waiting for that 24 to 48 hours of perfect weather to really kick off maple syrup season.
It's just been a little too cold.
Snyder's looking for a few degrees above freezing during the day and a few degrees below freezing overnight to get that freeze-thaw cycle going. That really gets the maple sap running.
We're hoping for a freeze, but then when it's going to freeze up here coming up, it looks like it's going to stay cold for a bunch. So obviously when it's froze, the sap doesn't run. So I'm not sure what the weather's going to give us yet.
This syrup season marks 50 years of making maple syrup for the Robinson and Snyder families. The family operation usually fills 230 barrels or 7,000 gallons with Canadian Gold each season. 460,000 feet of tubing carries the sap from 23,300 taps across 360 acres to Robinson's sugar camp each and every spring.
It takes about 40 years for a tree to be able to get tapped, and it'll go 60, 70 years until it's time to get rid of it because it's too big.
While the majority of the syrup made here at Robinson's ends up being enjoyed by Ontarians, some of it actually heads overseas.
We do have a contract in Japan. We send them about 1,200 cases twice a year, which is a full container load twice a year. So we have an exclusive deal with them, but most of it just stays in Ontario.
Whether it turns out to be a bumper crop or simply an okay year depends on the next few weeks of weather. Snyder has his fingers crossed. Things don't get too warm or too cold, so that sweet sap picks up steam.
That's the hope. I mean, you don't know until it's done. You just won't get any sap anymore, and that'll be the end of it. It's just like that. It's done.
In Huron County, Scott Miller, CTV News.
So it makes you wonder if this weekend's forecast might be to their liking. We do have a warm-up.
Yeah, I mean, the warm-up is good. It's going to get the sap flowing, but could it be a little too warm, perhaps, based on what we're hearing there? I don't think it's too warm for me. I don't know about you. I'm welcoming the change. And as we make our way through the weekend, we're also going to have a little bit of active weather to kick things off. One more look at the satellite and radar. Not too much to see at this point. We've got some drizzle out there, some very light showers in places, but later on tonight, it will be rain and it will be thunderstorms. So much so that Environment Canada has issued a rainfall warning for areas north of the GTA, west and east of here as well. Overnight tonight, the temperature is going to climb somewhere to between 4 and 7 degrees by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning. And then look at that forecast daytime high. We've been talking about it all week long. Teen temperatures across southern Ontario. But yes, in addition to it being warm, it will also be wet and windy at times. Those wind gusts upwards of 60 kilometers per hour at times. A reminder, we spring forward this weekend too, in case there wasn't enough going on. And if you have any clocks that need to be manually changed, you'll want to do that before you go to bed on Saturday night. Let's talk about next week. Monday and Tuesday are looking great. So too is Sunday, if we didn't mention that. And then Wednesday, chance of some mixing, maybe some rain during the day, some snow through the overnight. And then Thursday, yes, this is cooler, but seasonably so. We're not looking at a dramatic plunge back into an Arctic deep freeze or anything, but it will feel noticeably cooler. Michelle and Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. That is CTV's News at Noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and online, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a wonderful afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Natalie Johnson. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6 o'clock.